Welcome into the Sick Podcast with Draft Vogel. I'm John Vogel, your host. Today we've got special guests joining in on the show. Going to get into some game, talking about some something that I'm particularly close to, Tennessee football. But first, we got the big guns in the studio today, AC and Sammy. Guys, go ahead and get this thing started.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Draft Vogel.
With the first pick in the 2021 NFL Draft. The first pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. With the first pick in the 2023 NFL Draft.
The sickest NFL draft show. It's gonna be sick.
And the thickest draft show on the planet is brought to you by DraftKings. Make sure that you get into the DraftKings Sportsbook app now if you're not already. Use the DraftKings code SICKSPORTS to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 on any NFL bet. Get in on the action. Super Bowl's coming up. Got some Pro Bowl stuff also to get into. So make sure that you enjoy and take advantage of this offer. I mean, $200 in bonus bets instantly. Doesn't matter if you win or lose. Get into the action now on DraftKings. We got everybody here today, starting out with Justin Gamble, Mark Jarvis, the usual co-hosts here, guys. Everybody's in, everybody's back, and how are we doing, guys?
Tired. We've never done this on a Saturday before.
You haven't done this on a Saturday
Yeah,
before.
I've
Jarvis
done
and I
it.
have. Yeah.
Yeah, true. I sleep
Yeah,
in.
we had a
Tired
great.
on a Saturday. I'm nice and refreshed. Oh, I forgot you're like 2-3 hours behind me now, Cam.
It's
So-
still noon here, but I'm
Yeah.
lazy.
It's funny because we stretch out over 3 time zones, and we're doing this and trying to coordinate that stuff. It's always been fun.
It's been tough, is what it's been.
But hey, we have a
make
good
it
time.
work.
We talk football.
Yeah.
Everybody comes in. It's a lot of fun. But Jarvis, everything's good with you.
I'm excited. I'm
That's
starting 2025, guys. Working through Kansas State, and we're gonna have Shrine Bowl measurements soon too that we probably can discuss on here. So
Yeah.
fun time of year.
Yeah, and tape here should be out shortly as well. So the virtual credentials, they do the virtual credentials. You get access to all the film. That's always a good deal to get started with the scouting year. So,
Yeah.
but gentlemen, we got a special guest that's joining us that we wanted to talk some ball with. So let's bring him in, guys. Gabe Jeudy-Lally. I'm saying that right. I'm making sure, right?
Lally, but I mean this is
Lally, yeah, Lally. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's the Tennessee in me coming out. I was saying Lally, But hey, man, I appreciate you coming out on the show with us and joining us. How are you doing? How's training? How's life, man?
Yeah, I mean I'm doing good. Training 6 days a week, so it's like fall camp all over again. But it's been good. I'm around a really good talent right now, so pushing myself every day. And I'm back home in Texas, so it's nice to be here too.
Nice. So, are you one of those guys that picks a place to go train in, or are you working out with some
Yeah.
people that you're already familiar with?
I picked a place where I could go train. My agents were pretty cool, and they're like, wherever you want to go, where you think you'll do the best. So I chose to go to Exos in Frisco. So that's where I'm at right now. And I'm from Austin, so it's not too far away from me. So it's nice.
No, that's a good deal. Yeah. No, that's not far at all. In the grand scheme of Texas, of course, Texas
Yeah.
being this huge, massive state, right?
Yeah.
So, so Gabe, one of the things that we always like to start, that I like to start with on these on the interviews we do with players, is kind of learn how you got into football. Everybody's story is usually really cool. So for you, where did football and this journey start in your life?
Yeah, so I was originally born in New York City, and then my mom had met my stepfather, and he lived in Texas. So he was like, if you're going to come here and you're going to live in Texas, you have to play football. And I never really knew what football was. I was like 4 or 5. And so he put me in winter football. We're all just like a bunch of little bobbleheads running around. There's like 11 of us, so you got to play every single position. And from there, just kind of grew the affinity for the game. Like I tried a lot of different sports. Soccer, I'd run past the ball. Baseball was too slow for me. So just football is just kind of what I started with. I played year round for, until maybe middle school. And then I just was around a lot of like really good coaches growing up. My Pop Warner coaches won a couple national championships in college. Some of them played in the NFL, so we just had like a rich lineage. And we were one of the best teams in the state of Texas. So it was just really fun to be able to get to play with everybody here. And you know how football is in Texas. Like it's like your family, the Bible, and football. So like from there, like that's all I just kind of did as a middle schooler. You'd go play your football game on Tuesday, go watch the JV on Thursday, and then the varsity on Friday. So that's pretty much where it came from, and I just took it and ran with it from there.
Cam?
No, that's awesome. I didn't know you were. I heard you were in Texas. I didn't know it was Austin. That's pretty cool. Did you grow up a Longhorns fan?
Like to an extent, right? My sister went to school there, so I watched the Longhorns. She had a couple of friends on the team, so we'd go to the games. My stepdad went to NC State, so like I was like a Wolfpack fan kind of growing up, but more or less just like in awe of like college sports in general. You know, that was like the phase of like Chip Kelly at Oregon, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, the jerseys. And so I have me a couple Oregon jerseys too, knowing I would never go to Eugene in my life. But but I'd say like, yeah, for like a fair weather fan, I was a Longhorn fan at the end of the day.
Okay. At what point, you know, in your life, in your college or your football career, did you realize like college football is a reality for me and this is what I want to do and like I'm good? You know, like, when did that click to you?
Well, for me, I'd say probably like 7th or 8th grade, but I was told around like 4th or 5th grade because my position coach in Pop Warner, he played in the NFL, and me and his son actually both played defense. And I always wanted to be a quarterback, so I played quarterback growing up my whole life. And he was like, you need to stop playing quarterback and you need to go play defense and you're going to go to college. And when you're 11 or 10, you don't really realize that. But then moved to middle school and I strictly pretty much played defense, and I was like really good at it. And I was like, I think that he knew what he was talking about back in the day. And so that's when it kind of just started to click. I actually had to move away from Texas to North Carolina because my stepdad, he ran outpatient surgery centers, and so he got a new job in North Carolina, where he was from. And just like the level, like I was just way more advanced than the kids like when I had gone to North Carolina. So it just made the transition really easy for me because like I didn't know a lot of people, but football season starts at the beginning of school, so you're going to meet people from there and then on. And so I just kind of knew from then that it was going to happen. It just a matter of like what my body was going to develop into for me to see where I was going to go play at that point. But I just knew I had the skill to go do it.
Right. That's cool, man. That's cool.
Jarvis?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, John. I got a ton of questions lined up here, and I imagine we're going to spend the back half of this on more football focused stuff. So
yeah, let's start in on his background first.
So Tennessee put a lot of stuff in your roster page, and I was like, oh, this is all interesting, right? So
yeah,
you had a grandfather on the Ukrainian national soccer team and can speak fluent Russian?
Yeah, so my mom is an immigrant, and my father is an immigrant as well. My mom is an immigrant from Ukraine, and my father is an immigrant from Haiti. So I grew up mostly with my mom before I met my stepdad, and so growing up, she just spoke to me in Russian because when she was growing up, it was the USSR at that time, so everybody spoke mostly Russian. And that just kind of was my first language for a really long time. Then I moved to Texas, and my stepdad was like, I don't speak Russian. We need more English in the house. So English just kind of was that's just what it became at that point. Still know how to speak Russian very well. I understand it. I'd say better than I'd say speak it at this moment in time. But I mean, if I needed to have a full blown conversation, I can do whatever I need to do. It's just more
let's take a second to do this, because if you learned Russian fluently as a child, that means that you probably have the perfect accent for it, because there's a certain age that you hit where you can pick up on those dialect type deals. So, because you can't hear that you speak Russian when you speak English, right? So you learned English young enough as well. So could you say something in Russian so we can like hear the dialect?
Yeah. Здравствуйте, мой Gabi. Как дела?
Oh, it's perfect. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
You sound like a bunch of guys I play hockey with. Jeez.
No, that's all. Go ahead, Jarvis. Sorry, I had to stop that. That's awesome.
Oh no, you're fine. I didn't want to be pushing, be like, "Hey, speak some Russian for us," because I know whenever someone
Yeah.
probably finds out, you can say they probably like, "Well, go ahead and say it," and you don't know what to say all the time. But
It's like the parlor trick,
It's not a foreign affairs podcast.
Yeah, and then
Oh,
also I was
man.
looking through here and I saw that you've got 4 sisters, 2 brothers growing up in a big household and all that. How did that go for you?
So it's a little bit misleading, like what is put on there. So I do have 4 brothers and 2 sisters, but I actually grew up as an only child. So my dad has a couple of children, and they grew up with their um, family, right? And then my stepdad had 2 children too, but they're significantly older than me. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody's actually older than me by almost 10 years. So I just never really, I was the youngest for a while. Now I have a little brother. He's 15, but he grows up with my dad in New York City. So I just kind of always been an only child by myself, but I have relationships with everybody. I've talked to them and we all talk and such, but it was just like an awkward point because like when I was in kindergarten, everybody was going to college or they were starting their careers or doing those other things. Like my oldest sister is 42, so I'm 22, so there's a big difference in between our age groups.
Gotcha. Yeah, I always am nervous about asking about things like that off the roster pages because they'll put stuff on there and you're like, you're not really sure, and
Yeah,
sometimes
no,
you
of
can get it a
course.
little bit wrong in terms of how they set it up. Then also wanted to ask, and I know this is something John might have mentioned later on, but I wanted to catch it. Going from Vanderbilt to BYU to Tennessee, can you kind of just talk us through that process of transferring around and
Yeah, I guess sometimes it's like a misconceived notion, like transferring around, right? I graduated from Vanderbilt, got my degree from Vanderbilt, and
In 3 years?
Wait,
yeah, in
what?
3 years. And so like
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
you gotta sometimes think like you give a university as much as you can give, and the university does the same back. And so I did that, and I felt like I had like granted myself the opportunity to go and explore somewhere else, and you know get the opportunity to go to a bowl game because right, everybody's the end goal is to go to NFL, but also I want to experience like what it is like to win, what it's like to be on a different culture and stuff. So then I decided to leave Vanderbilt and go in the transfer portal. And I actually was deciding between Florida, Arizona State, BYU. Um, but I had just gone through a coaching change at Vanderbilt, so I wasn't very like keen on going to Florida when they had just picked up Billy Napier. And I was like, I don't really know what that's going to look like, so I don't want to get stuck in a situation like that again. Then just being like well versed in the football realm, like I understood that Arizona State was on the hot seat with Coach Herm, and I was like, I don't need to go through that as well, and then get lost in that process. My high school football coach in North Carolina, he played at BYU. He's a college football Hall of Famer. I played in the NFL, and he was like, he said it's going to be very different, but you can go there and you're going to play really good football. And I think like when I committed there, like preseason ranked top 25, and I never even sniffed that at my time at Vanderbilt. And I was like, we got to roll with that one. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Football there, it's kind of like Texas, like BYU football is like, that's all you do there, like sports, sports, sports. But of course, the culture is just different from like what I'm used to growing up in Texas or North Carolina or whatever the case is. So I decided to leave because we also fired half of our defensive staff, and my coach didn't know if he was going to stay. And I already at this point in my college career had 4 different position coaches in 3 years, and I was like, I'm going to have another different position coach. And ironically enough, when I entered the transfer portal, like 4 days later, they retained my coach. But I had already gone through a process, and I think I was already on a visit going somewhere to go. Yeah, I was already at Tennessee on the visit, so I was like, I'm not going to go back on what I already decided to do. And then I visited Tennessee, Baylor, UCLA, a whole bunch of places. At that point, when I left BYU, I could have gone anywhere I wanted to go in the country, but I really wanted to go back home. But when I went to Baylor, it just like didn't seem like the right fit for me. And I was like, I don't want to go somewhere in my last year and it just not be the right place. So Coach Martinez was like, just give us a chance. Just give us a shot. Like, take your visits. If you still like us, come here. And then at the end of the day, that's what I decided to do. It was tough for me at the beginning to make the decision because like I had gone to Vanderbilt and my mom was like, you can't do that, yada, yada, yada. But I also was like, does it really matter? And she was like, no, it doesn't. And like, if you were to speak to her today, she thinks that it was the best decision that I ever made, like in my whole career, to go to Tennessee. and she like is super happy with our experience there.
Man, that's such a good. Everything you just said is such a good segment because right now, with Saban retiring and a lot of Alabama players leaving and a lot of players just around the country transferring in and out, it's this stigma now, like this player's giving up, this player's just doing it, blah, blah, blah. It's personal. But I don't think casual fans or even sometimes educated people understand what the player like yourself goes through and like what the mindset is as far as why you transfer and why you pick certain places and what you want that's best for your career. And like that was just I'm really glad you said everything you just said because it kind of lays out like the thought process of like these guys aren't doing it because they just, they were scorned or they just hate this or they gave up. There's so much that goes into the process of choosing what's going to be best for you. And I mean,
yeah,
it's really nice to hear all that. And, because even for myself, I've been around this industry for a long time, but sometimes I'm like, I wish I knew what that player was thinking behind that decision. It's a head scratcher for me. And then you hear you talk about some of the stuff. It's like, oh, that's perfect. That's, what a lot of people probably need to hear and understand and be educated on that they don't know yet.
Yeah, like a big thing that like I hope that people do understand, like when they do look at my story and stuff like that. Like I never once left anywhere because I didn't play. Like that was never an issue for me, and then never like a thought. Like wherever I was gonna go, I was like, I'm gonna play. I'm gonna start. I have that enough confidence in myself. Like they wouldn't recruit me if that's not what they wanted me to do. Don't get me wrong. There are some people that leave because they're not playing. It might be a better opportunity elsewhere, but each time that I transferred, more and more attraction, like more people wanted me, right? From high school, I had certain places, and then Vanderbilt was the biggest place I could go, so I went, then left and stuff. But I knew each time I was like, I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to play. It's just, is it the right fit of where I'm going to go? Right. And I'm a guy that's going to have 3 degrees at the end of the day, 2 master's degrees and an undergrad. So I just know that I set myself up for regardless. Like football is the main goal, but I don't have to worry about the other stuff, and I just have to worry about football now because that's all that matters because I'm going to have 3 degrees.
Hell yeah, bro. Hey, real quick question. At BYU, did you play? You played with Puka Nacua, right?
Yeah, I did play with Puka Nacua. That dude is legit.
Right. What was that? Yeah. What was that like in practice? What's he like? Did you know at the time, like, this dude's a stud?
Of course, like, I mean, everybody checks out, like, the highlights from the year before, and Puka played there with Samson, his brother, the year before, and BYU is just really rolling, and they're just really good overall, but I will be honest with you, Puka did get hurt, like, in fall camp when I was there. I went against him a bunch of times before he did get hurt, and, like, I knew he was physical, faster than everybody thought. I mean, me and him battled back and forth, but I didn't know how good he was until the first game of the season because he had rolled his ankle like 3 days before the game. And I'm talking about rolled that thing. It was like purple up to his knee.
Like
and
we
were like, there's no way he's playing the game.
Yeah.
First play of the game, 75-yard touchdown. Handed it to him. And I was like, yo, what? And they're like, yeah, you didn't know, like, he's legit. And I'm telling you, the dude, like, the definition of flipping the switch. He doesn't have to, like, he could be so chill, whatever the case is. Like, he puts on his helmet and slaps his head, like, right before he goes out, and it's, like, over with. And then he scored 3 times that game and got hurt again. And I was like, this is crazy. And every game that he played, like, I think he only played, like, 8 that season when I was there. He went for, like, 100 yards total, 100 yards receiving, like, whatever it was. I was like, whoever gets this football player is going to get a dude that is really good. And I think that it just spoke to how much, like, the 40 matters, but the 40 doesn't matter, like, at the same time. Because my dude went and ran 4.6 at BYU's Pro Day, and he still, I think, in my personal opinion, should be Rookie of the Year in the NFL because he's really, really good. Yeah. I mean, if you're a gamer at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter what you run, you're going to ball. And so he's just the definition of doing that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's real cool.
Yeah, so
I got one more I'll throw out here, John. And like you mentioned,
go ahead,
there is kind of a stigma about people when they transfer, multiple times. It's kind of, I think you did a really good job explaining your reasoning behind it. And I think when scouts see, hey, this guy earned his degree from Vanderbilt in 3 years, and he's got master's degrees, and like he's, he wasn't going to try to find somewhere to play and that sort of thing. I think that's going to really impress scouts. And then also I wanted to ask you one more question about that was you got your undergraduate degree from Vanderbilt in human and organizational development. I was curious, how do you approach that, trying to take the things you learned in that and then applying that to being a leader with your team?
Yeah, so like my track specifically in HOD was leadership and organizational effectiveness. And I'll just be honest here, like I'm not the biggest like rah like talk about what I gotta do, but like one thing I did learn is like a lot of people do learn just based off like the actions that others, do around. And when I was at like Vanderbilt, we had a lot of groups, we did a lot of group work and such, and our teachers were never like grading us like, yeah, the content was important, but like it was more about like what did you do within the group setting, like to be able to help the team like be successful. And that's like kind of like what I do in the aspect like with my guys. Like I'm not like a big like team rah guy, but like within my group, like I definitely within my position group, like I try to like get the work done on the field the way that it's supposed to get done. And like guys were like, well, like it doesn't seem like you do extra this or extra that. I was like, because it doesn't always have to like not everybody has to see what you're doing. Like if you're doing it and then it's reflecting on the field, like that we understand that there's enough accountability for us to put you on the field. Like guys that aren't getting it done in the classroom, like I don't mean you got to be an A student, B student. I really don't care. You just got to be a student that passes at the end of the day, because if you can pass class, it at least shows me that I can put you on the field because you're going to be able to communicate the call to me and such. So like a big thing is like I learned at Vanderbilt is like just be like accountable with everything that you do like within your group setting, because the smaller group builds up the whole. So if the corners are doing the right thing, then that's one less thing we have to worry about on the field, right? Then there's 9 other players we got to worry about. If the safeties are doing their thing, then there's 7 people that we got to worry about from there. So if everybody does their 1/11th, or for us 2, then it's a bigger hole that will get more success done at the end of the day. But especially at the corner position, if you're not doing your job, there's not much success that's going to be happening on the field.
Yeah.
Speaking of playing the corner position, because one of the things that I liked about your tape is that you're a good tackler, you're a good space defender, you're willing and to be a run defender, and I think that's one of the most underrated aspects of playing corner. There's a lot of, when we looked at guys that came out in the last few years, C.J. Henderson's a great example of this. Top, first round, top 10 pick, guy that had no desire to make any tackles. I mean, that's the whole point of playing defense sometimes. You're not going to win every rep. And he's kind of found a role playing that nickel, late in his career, but it took him a long time. He bounced a lot of teams. So I like corners that can tackle. I like corners that can be physical. So that being said, 2-part question. Part 1 being, is it man or zone that you like playing better personally?
I think like to my skill set, okay, my skill set might look like I should be the guy that wants to play man every play. But to my skill set, I'd say I like to play zone because I'm super smart. So, like, if you give me the opportunity to see the play develop or see what the quarterback is doing, or just, like, use my pre-snap indicators while being in zone, there's many things I can't, like, not do. Like, I'm going to make the play more often than not, or make sure the ball's not going to come to my side, especially in a zone coverage. And also, like, in cover 2, like, if you roll me up into the boundary or to the field, like, a lot of my big plays in my career have been because I've been rolled up in a cover 2 situation, or, rolled up in a trap situation, because I get to see what's about to happen. And then instead of like being in man, where like you got your eyes on your man, and we always talk about your picks are not going to come in man coverage. Your big plays are usually not going to come in man coverage. Like, yeah, you're going to get a PBU, but also that's in the job description. So sometimes it's not considered a big play. Like that's a big thing that we talked about at Tennessee, is like you got a PBU, you did your job. Like that's not like a big play that helped us like win the game. Like, yeah, it could have, but you were doing your job. But like if you're going to make a pick or something like that, like my play versus Texas A&M this past year, like I was a trap cover 2 corner, and I just like realized what was happening, so I just stood my ground, and he threw the ball straight to me at the end of the day. So I like to play zone because I guess to utilize my biggest strong suits, which is A, I like to hit, and B, I'm a super smart football player, and I'm like twitchy for as big as I am, so it's easy for me to get from point A to point B to make plays.
And so that's what I was kind of thinking when I watched you, because the man coverage that you did play stands out, right? Because you're tight. I think you like to go to a trail most of the time, right?
I mean, you don't want to be in a trail, but like there's just times like just based on the technique that we're playing this year, it it was more cookie cutter. So like kind of had to do what you had to do to be able to get on the field. And that wasn't always my strong suit. So like I had to be in a trail for me to be able to play other things that were going on in the situation. I guess if like you watch my film from BYU, I was able to play a little bit different of technique, so I was on top of routes a little bit more. But it is what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, you looked like a different player at BYU than Tennessee. Not worse or
Yeah.
better, but more just like this. He's clearly being asked to do something different here. Like,
Yeah.
it's definitely not the same thing. Which
And there it is right there. There it is right there. But that's why that's where I was going. The two-part question was I saw a lot of man. I thought it looked like you could really play it, but it looked like you also preferred zone. So that's why I was curious.
Yeah.
My last question before I hand this off to the other guys here is Hula Bowl experience. What were you able to go down to the Hula Bowl over a couple of weeks ago and kind of take away from that event?
Yeah. My biggest takeaway from the event is some of the rules in the NFL. Like the amount of flags that were being thrown on us was like ridiculous. Like illegal contact. Like I never really understood
still don't.
like not like being touching the receiver like after 5 yards, because like sometimes like if I got you and like I'm gonna mush you out of bounds like in college, but those are things you can't do in the NFL. And they called like a lot of OPI also, like little things that like I wish they were throwing in college, because I'm like he's shoving me down like this stuff, but the refs are like they see those things, like those are the things that they're actually looking for, because they sat us down before each practice and they told us like the specific things that they're looking for and like what's thrown at a higher rate in the NFL compared to college. So that was cool. Definitely, I mean, I guess like practicing like a pro, because we did have like a lot of coaches that were retired from the NFL, and so that was cool. But I guess also getting to meet with the scouts was a good experience too. I mean, I met with a lot of teams. A lot of teams told me like things that they liked about myself that I didn't even know about, and a lot of teams like told me like where they felt like they would take me, which sometimes was a surprise, sometimes wasn't. So it was good nonetheless. I do think that like these all-star games sometimes are a little bit tough because like you don't have the same resources you do at your school. So we went like 3 days in a row of fall camp practicing without having the ability to go use the hot tub, have the trainers have to do all that type of stuff. Yeah, there are trainers there and that stuff, but it's nothing compared to like what I had, at least at Tennessee. It could have been way different from somebody from a different school. It could have been like more than they had, but for me, like even from the 3 places I'd been at, it was just really different. So my body felt like crap by the end of the 5 days I was there. Like I was battling, like not trying to get injured more than I was like trying to make sure that, oh, I'm doing everything correctly. Because we had a couple of guys that got significantly injured that their draft process is now over because they got injured at the Hula Bowl.
That's unfortunate, man.
Yeah.
That sucks to hear. Is there any NFL players or any former UT guys that you are in contact with? Maybe like, that give you advice, mentorship, anything like that? Or about the upcoming draft process and the combine, all that stuff.
I wouldn't say like, see, I was at UT for about a year, right? Yeah. But like not enough like with the guys that are there beforehand that are like in the draft. I know that like this past summer, Cam Sutton like helped, like I went to go train a house athlete because they had known Cam and stuff like that. So I went to go check that out. And we talked to Alante a little bit because his cousin CJ played with me at Vanderbilt. So, but I'd say like a lot of people that I talked to
like
about
CJ Taylor?
Yeah.
I didn't know Cam's was his cousin. That's awesome.
No, not Cam.
Alante.
Oh, Alante. Yeah, Alante.
Yes. Yeah. They kind of look alike if you actually ever even look at it. They do, which is kind of funny. But anyway, I talked to a lot of the process like with my guys from BYU and some of my boys from Vanderbilt, because those are guys that I built like a longer relationship with, of course, from Vanderbilt.
Right.
And then like playing at BYU last year, like I mean, I got to talk to Puka about it. I got to talk to Jaron and such to see what the situation's been like. We had a lot of guys get drafted from BYU, so it was cool just to see like what they said about it. And it's just the biggest thing that everybody says is a marathon, not a sprint. Like, and I realized that more this week than I had in my like prior 2 weeks because I'm trying to get, faster in my 40 at the start. Because I mean, I can fly at the back half, but right now I'm trying to figure out the start. In the first week, like it was not what I wanted. The second week, still not what I wanted. But like this past Friday was the day that I took like a massive stride, and I was like, okay, I see what they're saying now. Like I get why they're saying like Rome wasn't built in a day. Like you're not going to get like faster in this because it's not about being fast. It's about being technically fast. So like if I'm fast in like 10 steps, cool. Somebody did it in 6, they're going to be faster than me, even though they might not actually be faster than me by any means.
Right.
But so it's just been cool to actually take like it because there's not really a classroom setting. It's more or less like a, hey, we told you this, now apply it. So now taking like the class to the grass has been better for me in the last couple of weeks.
Right on. A little bit of an unserious question here too.
Yeah.
When you found out you were playing Iowa in your bowl game, what was that like? Because they averaged like 4 points a year. Were you psyched, or were you like, shit, they're not going to throw the ball on us? Like, what do you do?
I like in the back of my mind, personally, I was like, this is like the type of football that's just like, if I was in the Big Ten, I would have been like uberly dominant. Because like that game, I played one of my best games like like all season. I was like, this is just too easy. It moves too slow. Like I can tell what's going to happen pre-snap. And when you're under the center, not too much stuff can like truly happen. Like you got to still 3-step drop to throw a quick game. Like it's not where they catch the ball and they're throwing the slant. And I'm like, that happened way too fast. Like where did that happen? Like that wasn't happening. And it was more downhill runs. Like when they said like he's going to run the ball between the A and the B gap, it was not like, oh, he's going to run the ball through the A and B and then he's going to be like Ray Davis and bounce it outside and try to score a touchdown, right? No, it was like down the A and B.
Like I'll meet him there. Like
right there. And meet him there. And I was like, that's easy. That's super easy for me. And at the end of the day, they were like, they have the number 2 overall defense in the country. We don't know if y'all are going to be able to score. And I was like, man, you got to think we have the most high-powered offense in the country. You might have not looked at it at some points in time, but I was like, we're going to freaking fly at the end of the day.
Yeah,
so
they have the best defense because they're playing offenses like that.
Of course.
That's what it is.
Yeah, like, and I think like the Michigan like Alabama game was kind of like the epitome of that too. Like I trained with some guys from Michigan, and they're like, yeah, they like weren't that good up front, like yada yada. I was like, well, if they weren't that good, y'all still went into overtime. I was like, and that was not the best Alabama team that like has been around. I was like, yeah, we folded. Don't get me wrong. Here at Tennessee, we folded this year. We were up by 17 or whatever the cases, and we didn't win the game. But I was like, if y'all would have played Georgia, like who I thought should have been number 4 at the end of the day, I was like, it would have been a way different ball game for y'all. Yeah. It would have been way scarier too.
Good to hear. Did you when you intercepted Joe Milton in practice ever? Did it hurt your hands or?
Dude, I'll be honest with you. Joe takes care of the ball really well.
Okay.
I'd say like Joe was picked off in my time there maybe like 4 or 5 times, but it was usually off of a deflection or something like that. Right. But no, I mean our other DB Kamal like got baited him one time in a cover 2, and it was like ended practice, and it was pretty good. But I'd say like Nico threw more picks than anything. Like I picked Nico off one time, I'd say. But he's young, so he was just make like certain things that we'd make look like it was cover 1 when it was invert 2, and he didn't see us when we pull up in those situations.
Right.
And that's interesting as you say that about Joe too, because I remember before the season started, I don't know if you knew about like Josh Minesco and some of the guys who were doing the interviews with Joe before the season started.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, he's like this comedian, and he asked Joe when he was going to throw his first one. He goes, "First what?" He goes, "First interception." Like that was the question. So, because I think it was known also that he wasn't really throwing them in practice, but
yeah, I mean, one thing I'll say is like, whatever everybody like believes about Joe, at the end of the day, like the dude did exactly what he was told and like helped us be as successful as we could with like what we were doing. At the end of the day, like we did get like we played 4 bad quarters of football, and 4 bad quarters of football results in 4 L's. Like that's how small like the like margin is for victory. We played a bad second quarter versus Florida. That lost us the game. We played a bad third quarter versus Alabama, lost us the game. And we played a bad, third quarter against Missouri, lost us the football. Our fourth quarter versus Missouri, and lost us the football game. And then Georgia, the second quarter, they did 2 trick plays and they got us. And we had our eyes in the backfield, and then they had a reverse to the end zone. And it was just like, dang. But other than that, like, nobody, I would never say like Joe lost us a football game. Like the pick 6 versus Missouri, it happened, but it was after they had just gone for 205 on the ground with homeboy that runs the ball, and they were up by 21 points already. So it's just like, it is what it is. He was trying to force something to help us get back in the football game.
Yeah, screw it. Hero ball's okay sometimes.
Yeah, you mentioned that scouts are kind of telling you stuff even you didn't realize about your game. Like, hey, we like this about your game. And you're like, oh, that's surprising. What type of things are they telling you, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, like, this is going to sound funny. Like, maybe I'm just like hard on myself sometimes. They're like, we really like how sticky you are and like press man coverage, something like that. And I don't know, maybe we just like really like are very nitpicky, which I do think we are when it comes to watching film. But it's just sometimes I'm just like, that just doesn't feel right, or that doesn't look right. But I guess like it doesn't always have to look right for it to like actually be like the right thing that you're doing. Like, I guess like more often than not, it's like a good ball that's beating me. Then I'd say like me not just being there for the pass. So it was cool to hear that. And I'd say like that was the biggest thing, because like this season I was like really worried about, like, because I battled some injuries. Like I'd say like the back half of the season I probably played at like 70%. So I was playing, and we were playing the better part of our schedule when I was playing at 70%. So I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to put out bad tape, and that's not what I need at this moment in time. But I actually played a lot better than I even expected myself to, which was good at the end of the day.
I'll throw one more out if you don't mind, John.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I like to ask guys is kind of when you're going through your week and you're prepping for your game, what types of things are you doing in terms of preparing for your opponent? Are you taking notes? Like, how do you approach the week?
Yeah, this is like a good question, because this is like a question that majority of scouts ask when they go down their questionnaire. But on Sundays, I'm watching the game that we just played, seeing like before we talk about it on Monday, just seeing what I see at the end of the day. But then to move on to the next week on Monday, I usually watch first and second down, write down like what I'm going to see, because on Tuesday, that's what we're going to get at practice: first, second down, second and long, seeing what a team's going to do. Tuesday, I go through third down and fourth down, trick plays, because that's what majority of the time we're going to see on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, I usually like do like a holistic approach, and I try to watch like everybody. And especially down the stretch of the season, I started to realize I need to watch like the guys that haven't even played that much, because like versus Georgia, like Dylan Bell, like didn't get the ball a lot, but he was like the guy that day. He threw a touchdown, ran a touchdown, and caught a touchdown. And I was just like, dang, if I would have watched more about this, like I would have seen that this is an opportunity that would have happened. And then on Friday, I kind of try to watch somebody that plays a similar defense to us. So we're like a 4-2-5 base with base nickel, but our nickel doesn't travel, which a lot of teams don't usually do that. Their nickels usually do travel. So just try to see like somebody that's played the same type of game as us, to see like how they attack them. Of course, like the players are different, so like you don't know where they're going to really attack you, but just to see like the philosophy of what they were trying to do versus certain teams, like, which was good, because like Alabama does something like kind of similar to us, and versus Texas A&M, like we saw that like Max Johnson would force stuff if you get a lot of pressure on him. And I was like, if we roll up to the field, like it's over with. And we got 2 interceptions in like the last 2 minutes of the game because of it. And I was like, that was good that I was able to see that, because they were supposed to be one of the better O-lines that we saw all year long. And I think we sacked him like 6 times and got 8 pressures on him. I was like, I mean, when we got James Pierce and we had TB coming off the edge, we were like almost unstoppable. So it was pretty good to see that happen too. But that's pretty much how my week goes. And then by like Saturday, I try not to watch anything else, because now it's like a read and react. Like a lot of guys still keep watching on Saturday, but I was like, I'm just going to overwatch and then go out there and play stiff. So at this point, it's just time to go play.
You mentioned a lot of the other defenses that you watch don't have that. They do have a traveling nickel, and you guys didn't. What types of differences does that kind of create? How is that different between what you guys ran versus what other teams ran?
really doesn't matter what the difference is between what we ran. It just matters like the offense is going to put 2 speed guys into the boundary. Like, because you're not traveling your nickel, so that means essentially you're going to have a walked out will, or you're going to ask your safety to come down, or you're going to ask your corner to divide the zone instead of having like a true cover player into the boundary when they're going to go FB into the boundary. So that was just like the thing that we saw. Teams were either going to A, run the ball into the boundary, or B, attack us into the boundary throwing the ball, which is like it was tough because like we'd have our Leo dropping sometimes, right? It was James Pierce. And at the beginning of the season, you know, it was tough for them to understand that like it's not just like buzzing to a spot, it's like looking, seeing where they're going, and then buzzing to that spot. And I had told him that, and boom, in the last game of the season, he like looked, buzzed, and scored a touchdown, a 64-yard pick six. And I was like, that's what we just need y'all to do every single time. And then we could run more coverages where we're not afraid to like roll to the field because we have such a good defender into the boundary who also comes off the edge. So it just makes his stock even more valuable, right? Because he can drop into coverage and pick the ball off, but also he can get his hand in the dirt and he's going to come and attack the quarterback.
Wow.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go, guys. Gabe, we got to wrap this thing up because I think we're a little bit over time. Hopefully AC and Sammy didn't fall asleep back there. But no, great. I thought that was great. I appreciate you taking the time to join us and really getting a chance to let us see a little bit into, you know, your football IQ and what you know about the game, and then to get to know a little bit about you too. I think that was awesome.
Yeah,
so I appreciate you taking the time, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Sammy, AC,
great.
Let's get us out of here.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Draft Vogel on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.